In this series of videos, we're going to concentrate on basic math operations and using Excel to be our power tool for doing our statistics. Before I dive into some basic math operations, I am going to use some language very specific to Excel that we need to understand, so it's just quicker for me to communicate what I'm doing. First of all, what we see here is the Excel environment. And then all this area right here is our sheet. We're going to put some information in here. We can put text and numbers and all of that. Then we have some columns. That's column B, column C, column D, column E, and so forth. So columns have letters as their name. Rows have numbers as their name. So this is row 4, row 5, row 6, row 7. The intersection of a column and a row, like this, is called a cell. And that cell has an address. That cell's name, or address, is B4. So it's always the column name first and then the row name second. So this is B4, this is D10, this one is E15. Now there's a little cheat box right here in the corner. It will tell you what the name of the box is, or the name of the cell. It will tell you what it is. That's E15. If I go out here, that's L8. So it's a little cheat box to let you know where you're located. Okay, so that's kind of the basic parts of the windows that I want to talk about right now. So columns, rows, cells, and the sheet itself. Now let's get to the basic math operations of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Now this time I'm just going to be using some numbers. I don't have any information on my sheet besides these little titles here. Anytime we want Excel to do some math, we have to tell it, hey, Excel, I want you to do this math. I don't want to do it. You do it. We do that by hitting the equal marker. Once we hit equal, we can literally put it in like we would write it down on a paper. So if I want Excel to do 3 plus 7 plus 10, I just put in the numbers and say, okay, you do the math, Excel, of 3 plus 7 plus 10. And when I hit enter, you'll see that Excel did the math of 20. If I click back into the cell, you can see right here, this is called the formula bar. You can see in the formula bar that what I typed in there is still there. It's just displaying the answer. So there is a difference between what is actually inside the cell and what gets displayed. The math is what's inside the cell. The answer to the math is what gets displayed. Let's do some subtraction. So Excel do some math, meaning equal 6 minus 19. And I hit enter. And sure enough, Excel does that work for me. 6 minus 19 is 13. Let's do some multiply. Okay, and I just hit the hyphen for subtract. If you have a number area on your keyboard, you can just hit the minus there as well. So again, I want to tell Excel, do some math, equal, and then let's multiply 6 and 9. So 6 asterisk, which is shift 8, 9. And the moment I get out of that cell, it will do the math for me. Division. Do some math. Let's say 19 divided by 73. All right, so division is a slash marker. It is the forward slash, which is on my keyboard below the question mark. It's on the same key, but it's not the shift for the question mark. It's right next to the shift key, but I'm just going to hit the key and not shift for question mark. And then I hit enter. And it displays it as a decimal. Now, I want to talk to you about decimals. Because in our stats class, we're going to have to do a lot of rounding to particular places. So to the 4th position, 3rd position, and so forth. If I highlight the cell, let me go back in and just highlight the cell. Up here, which is called the ribbon, I have these two little buttons. One will increase the decimal. the other will decrease the decimal. If you increase the decimal, it will show you more decimal places. If you decrease the decimal, it will show you fewer decimal places. And in the process of doing that, Excel will round the number, which is really cool. We don't have to think about it. I want 4 decimal places. Now, if I had to think about it and round to 4 decimal places, that's going to be 0.26027. Okay, so I have to round up. That's 0.2603. Had to kind of do a lot of thinking there. But if I just reduce the decimals to show 4 places, Excel does the rounding for me. Now here's the difference. Remember when I said that what's inside the cell and what it displays is different? Inside the cell, it's doing some math. Equal 19 divided by 73. It's displaying the number in decimal form, and I get to control how many decimal signs or decimal places that it shows. If I only wanted to carry on another calculation using the 0.263, I need to type it in, because behind the scenes there are definitely more decimal places. Like if I expand this column and I tell Excel, show me actually more decimal places, and there is a lot more decimal places. So if I did some math using the value that's in there, the problem is Excel is doing it on the real number and not on the rounded number. Okay, so that's the difference of showing me, displaying it a certain way, and using what's in the cell for calculation. Now, I'm talking about using what's in this for calculation. So let's do some things. So instead of using numbers, let's use the cell values for some calculations. Let's do some addition. I have to tell Excel, do some math. But this time I want to add whatever is in this cell, which is a 20, and whatever's in this cell, which is a -13. What I can do is click on the cell, and it grabs the cell address. The cell address is A4. Plus. Now, I want this next cell, which is B4. I can either click on the cell or I can type B4. So if I type B4, it's not case sensitive. You'll see that it highlights it. I'm kind of lazy, so if I'm already on my mouse or I'm already moving around to click on stuff, I'm just going to click on it. But you certainly can type it in if you want. And then I hit enter. And sure enough, 20 plus a -13 is +7. Now here's the nice thing about using those cell addresses, is what if I actually forgot to add, a 3? Well, by changing the original cell and making sure that I add the 3 that I needed, Excel didn't take that 20. It took whatever is in the cell. So it said, oh, whatever's in cell A4, just add it to B4. And so what if it was a 20? So what if it's a 23? It's going to do the math for us. It's going to update the cell A8 with whatever is in A4. This is going to come in super handy because there are times that we're going to want to repeat the same math over and over and over and over again. And instead of just wiping out all of our formulas that we're going to build, we just change the cell value and Excel will do the rest of it for us. All right, let's do some subtraction using some cells here. And I'm going to say equal, let's subtract A4 minus B4 minus C4, just for argument's sake. And there we go. Excel did the math for us. And in fact, anytime that I change any of these values, in fact, I could take the math out of it and just say this is now 45. Excel does not care if there's math that was in C4 or if it's actual a number in the cell C4. It will update our formula that was in B8. It says just grab whatever is in C4. I don't care what it is. right? That's the cool part about Excel. It will update dependent formulas for you. All right, so this one, again, let's do some multiplication using cell values. So I'm going to say -13, and I'm just clicking times Shift 8, that decimal, why not? And hit enter. And again, it will do the math for me. It will look in that cell, see who's in there, multiply it by the other guy that's in the other cell. Division. Equal. Oh, just take any cell divided by another cell, just for argument's sake. Cool, I've got my answer. Now, this cell of B8 is reliant on what's inside A4, B4, and C4. The cell in C8 is reliant on what's in B4 and D4, and what's in D8 is reliant on what's in B8 and C8. But here's the thing. These will all update in the event that I change any dependent variable. So instead of this -13, I'm just going to say, oh, I goofed. This is really just -19. It's not a formula. It's just -19. And you will see Excel's smart enough to update all the rest of the values that were dependent on that value. I prefer, just my personal opinion, I don't want to put my numbers in a formula. I want to use the cells in the event that I goofed and I need to change a value. Here's what I mean. To calculate a simple interest, it's going to be the principal times the rate, and that equals interest. Okay. Let's say we're investing $10,000 at a rate of 4%. Well, that's 0.04. My interest is calculated as the multiplication of those two things. So I'm going to use my cells. Equal whatever is in this cell times whatever is in this cell. Okay. Now, let's say I invest $3,000 at 0.35. Okay, so 3.5%. And in fact, I'm going to figure out a few more things. So 2,900, and oh, that was only 2%. Okay. And maybe there was a small investment of $500, and that was at 1% interest. Now, I've already done the hard work for the first line of information. I've already done that. Now I can reuse this formula, A11 times B11, and here's how I'm going to do it. In the corner right here, it's called an autofill handle. And what I can do is click and hold, and then drag it down. Now Excel is super smart. I haven't let go yet. Excel really sees this. Let me go back up. This calculation of A11 times B11 is really this. Excel says, hey, look at the stuff 2 cells to my left, and then multiply it by the 1 cell to my left and get the answer, right? So if I copy this down, Excel's going to do the same thing in cell C12. It's going to say, hey, go get the thing 2 cells left of me and the thing 1 cell left of me and multiply it together. And then in C13, it's going to do the same thing. And in C14, it's going to do the same thing. And if I let go, it does the calculation for me. I didn't have to even copy that formula in terms of equal, click here, times, click there. That autofill handle is really going to save me some time. It's really, really going to save me some time. Okay. And sometimes I want to add up a column of information. And Excel knows that this is very much a popular thing to do, so it's put a shortcut for us. Now, I want to display the total in this column right here in cell C15. So I'm going to go up onto my ribbon, and I have something called the Autosum. Now, I do have options. If I click this arrow, I have sum, average, count the numbers, the max, the min, but I want to add up these values. And to do that, the default is Autosum. And in math, sum means add up. So I'm going to click on Autosum. Now, Excel is pretty smart. It looks around it. It first starts looking above it, and it says, hey, are there any numbers I can add up? And if there are, it's going to assume that everything above it that's numbers, I want you to add together. Now, Excel, I get the fact that above this, there is the negative 4.94521. It didn't grab that, and it didn't grab the 45. Here's why. It ran into a word. And so Excel says, oh, I ran into a word, so you really want me to stop, right? And I said, yes. Well, I haven't said yes yet. I have to hit enter to say yes. And I said, yes. And Excel does the adding for me. This will come in super handy when we need to add up a whole bunch of different columns. It will come in super duper handy. Now remember that little icon I told you was the autofill handle? Well, I can go horizontally too and say, hey, why don't you fill in these squares too, these cells? And Excel says, looks above it, finds those 4 cells above it, adds them together. Here in column B, it says, oh, go get the 4 cells above me and add them together. And right there in my original one said, hey, go get the 4 cells above me and add them together. So that's a quick intro to how to add, subtract, multiply, divide numbers using the actual numbers and creating math equations and using cell values.